Alright, loves, I'm back. I had to go to sleep. So I'm back this morning to wrap up this design and hopefully a new template for you guys. Um, I think what I'm going to do next with this design is add some solid color to the bottom and fade it up so that we don't have, pretty much any white at the bottom, and it looks like it was printed from seam to seam, or at least in certain areas. So let's get to it. Let's do a new layer. And I'm going to go to my gradient tool, which is here. Now the gradient right now is set to white, so you wouldn't see it. What I'm going to do is do a color overlay. And the color overlay, I'm going to do it red. So let's start from about the bottom of the hem, and then I'm going to hold down my shift key. I'm going to show you what happens if I don't hold down shift. I can do my gradient at an angle, and that's not what I want. I want it to go from the bottom to the top. If I hold down shift, see how it locks it, where I can only go exactly vertical. There we go. Alright, and so what that's going to look like once I print these 13 by 19s is it will have a good, strong, solid color at the bottom. And then I can change the color overlay if I want to. Let me show you a trick too. If you don't want to change the color, like let's say you want to keep that color overlay, do another one and go ahead and change this next one to whatever color you want to test out. Then you can see what it looks like with the black instead. And honestly, I like the black better, but I think we need to bring out more of the red, so we'll see. And once we do the mock-up, we're going to apply all of these design elements with a clipping mask to the hoodie, so we'll get a better idea of what it'll look like. But I don't do that till last because it does take a little effort to do while you're designing, but once you're done designing, it's pretty much a one-step process. Okay, so I think I'm okay with my elements now. I did have some little swooshes. Oh, that was something else I did. It's like some transparent triangles and a little geometric look. I wasn't feeling it for this particular look, but I might use it for something else. Let's see what else we have. These are some of the swooshes. I think swoosh 1, swoosh 2. And I couldn't think whether I want to use the swooshes or I want to use the vertical kind of aurora kind of images. I think I'm going to go with the aurora image. Alright, so if I want to basically use the same design element for the accents on the sleeves, then basically I want to make sure that I'm optimizing this so that it can be used in other locations. So for instance, I would be using this one section for this sleeve, and it's not exactly a clean cutoff selection, of course, so I need to determine what I want to do with that. So everything right now that I have selected, including the swooshes, I'm going to go ahead and group it. So I'm selecting the top, and I'm going to select everything except for that gradient that came from the bottom. Hold down shift, select the last layer. It selected all of these layers in between, and I'm going to group, Control G. So now all of that design right there is a group. So I will call this Abstract Aurora. I don't think, no, A-U. I don't know how to spell Aurora. Design. That's what Google is for, because I'm not going to embarrass myself. A-U-O-R-A. Like I said, I will tell y'all all day that I'm highly educated, but spelling is not my thing, especially when I'm in design mode. Alright, so I just think I spelled it right. Anyhow, That's what Google Edge is for. If you don't know, find out. That could be my strongest lesson. If I don't teach y'all Photoshop, let me teach you that researching for yourself is key. It is vital to you growing, learning, and doing for yourself. Okay, so before we get into cutting out the images and that sort of thing, I'm going to convert this to a sleeve print. So in my head, the best way to do this sleeve print would actually be to rotate these 2 pages. I wish I could do it with 1 page, but especially sweatshirts are really wide sleeves, so you're going to have to use 2 sheets of paper, as you can see here. But what I would like to do is have it so that the 2 sheets of paper can come together at the angle of the shirt here, and it will look continuous, like it's wrapped around, rather than like you start on it here and then you take the other sheet of paper and do the other side, and then it doesn't look like it comes together. It looks like it has a break in the edge of the sleeve there. So let's do it. Let's take this abstract aura design, and I'm gonna duplicate this real quick and see if I can make this easy on myself. Most times I don't make things easy on myself. As a matter of fact, I think what I'm gonna do is, if I make this here I go with my smart objects. I know y'all love me. Alright, so I'm gonna make this a smart object. So just right click, convert to smart object. And the reason why is because if I want like my bottom area here to match my sleeve area, then what I can do is make it a smart object so that when I drag it to the new location, if I decide to change anything, it will update the changes to the sleeve area. So let's say when you change your colors, all that stuff, that's the beauty of making templates. I'm telling you guys, once you learn how to create smart objects, you'll be making your own templates and you won't need me. And I will be sad, but I'll be proud. Alright, so I'm seeing that there is some extraneous stuff up here, so I'm going to open up my smart object and see what is up. Oh, you know what? I know what's up. That's up. That's up there. So I'm going to bring this down. Even though I'm not using it right now, I'll drag it to the bottom layer. So I want my layers to kind of be condensed. Actually doesn't look bad like that. But the problem is it's going to be above my print area, and I know that. If I want it to show up more, I could duplicate that layer and make it even. Yeah, actually that looks kind of neat. Alright, so let's see, let's duplicate it one more time. But I do see I have some stuff here, so I might take just this layer, add a layer mask, and then take my soft brush, or not even my soft brush, I'll take my gradient. And gradient works the opposite here. If I have black selected on my layer mask, then I'm going to use my gradient to fade things off. Oh, and I have 3 versions of the same thing, so I'm going to take all of this as one group, and then I'll do a layer mask to that group. So each of those triangular geometric layers I just created, I just put in a group, and then I created a new layer mask just for that group. So that way when I create this gradient, it has taken that down, which now it doesn't look so prominent. So let me do Control T, and in fact, let me take off my layer mask, delete layer mask, Control T. I'm going to just turn this upside down because the real effect is at the top. We're bleeding off the bottom. So if I can't see it from the top, it's almost not worth using, which is fine. It just might not be for this particular project, you know. As much as I love discovering and creating templates and things, sometimes I tend to overdo it, as I'm sure you will too. And you know, you add some stuff. What is it, Chanel, that said basically before you leave to remove at least one piece of jewelry? Yeah, because most times we tend to do a little too much when we want to stand out, and then you just remove one thing and it becomes simpler and more chic. All right, so I am going to close this down. I'm going to say, yes, I want to save. If not, you're going to be in some trouble if you go back to your original file. So now the original file will update the smart object. So if I were to have changed my colors or the design elements, turn some layers off or on, that will be propagated onto the two areas where I have the smart objects now. And then I may find out I want to take off the abstract triangles for the sleeve print. I'm not sure yet. Let's see. It does look visually more interesting. Definitely does. I'm still not sure. But either way, what we're going to do is go ahead and use it as if we're going to go with it, and then I'll play with it as I go. So what I would like to do is visualize this setup. So I'm going to Control T and transform how this sleeve print would kind of wrap around. So I'm imagining that I'm going to have my print wrap around that sleeve. Excuse me. Of course, I'm not going to get all the way up into this sleeve area because I want to stay true to the 13 by 19 size. So I'm reducing it just so that I have an understanding of how far I want to go up. Like I said, this is like a semi all over. So what we're doing is we're adding some really oversized elements so that this multi-press project looks and has the appeal of an all over, but it is not an all over design. I'm very concerned with like the edges of the sleeves. I want to make sure it has good coverage because that's usually where the white shirts get the dingiest, is around the sleeves, bottom of the hem, and around the hood or the neckline. So liking that. And then what I will most likely do is probably put some words down it so that there is something that that kind of stands out in this area. And I will also make sure that it fits in the 13 by 19. So if I want to take one of my sleeves there, and in fact I can take both of them. I'll take the sleeve folder and I'm going to rotate it. And now you can see that my excess needs to be down below the sleeve a little bit. And you can see how this one sleeve takes up virtually a whole sheet of paper. And what I'll do for this graphic right now is I'm going to take the opacity down a little bit so I can see where the sleeve is. So in my head, I know that if I wanted this design to wrap around, it's not going to wrap around as much on one side as the other. So I'm going to kind of stretch it. I'm holding down the shift key so I can stretch it unproportionately. Otherwise, you're gonna get it being taller and wider. So I am squishing it in. And like I said, now that this is a smart object, when I update this one, we'll update this one as well. And let's see. And for the sake of the sleeve print, if I wanted the triangles, which I need to do something because these triangles are not clean cut off the top, so I would have to do something to make them work out. For now, let me just take the triangles off because that's something I can work on my own time, making those triangles look good. So I'm going to take them off. That way we have a good left and right edge for the sleeve. And yes, I'm going to save. And it's just updating right now. And to me, that just looks easier for me to understand how it's going to wrap around the design. Let's see what else we could do here. For the sleeve design, I'm going to take the rectangle, and I'm giving myself a little bit of bleed area here. We'll do Control T. You got this is for the mock-up. When I get ready to print, I'm going to print these straight. I'm not going to try to print these at this angle. This is just for my understanding of what I have available, what space I have available to print 13 by 19, and to give me an idea of scale. Scale is very important when you are designing these all over looking shirts, because you want to make sure that when you do your multiple presses, you aren't pressing over the same area so many times that it is diluting the previous image. So you know, when you do sublimation, every time you heat up an area that had an image with the sublimation paper, if you overlap it, it will pull some of that color away. So we want to just be aware of that and avoid that as much as possible. I'm just hitting my shift key so I can smush a little bit and make sure that I have a good area of contact here. Now, the same way that I did the red gradient down here, I can take the same red gradient. As a matter of fact, this is the bottom hem. I'm going to take, right click, and make this, I'm going to create a clipping mask for this gradient. And the reason why it disappeared is, remember, I don't have a fill set for these rectangles. So basically the gradient that I just told it to clip to is only clipping to this outline, if you can see that. So I would have to go to my properties of the rectangle and let it be white, so I would see that. And then I'll show you a trick of what I do so that I actually see through to the sweatshirt. For this bottom hem area, instead of pass through, I will change it to multiply. And multiply allows me to see the image underneath. So, and it's still cropped to the rectangle and not to the shirt right now. So same thing here, I'm going to go to my properties of this rectangle, go ahead and go to the fill. Instead of invisible, we're going to choose white. And now I have that. I'm going to do the same thing to the rectangles here. Go to my properties. And you know what, once I moved it, it looks like it is not my shape any longer. So at this point, I can just fill it with white if it's not a shape. Hold on there. Now it is a shape path instead of a shape. So I'll just do a color overlay. No, that's not gonna work either because it doesn't have a fill. So what I did essentially when I rotated it, you see the original rectangle, I have the ability to edit it with my properties here. I suppose when I rotated it, I didn't give myself, or I took away some of my options, which would be to change the fill and the outline and all that good stuff. Which I would think if it's still a shape, so it should still have those properties, but obviously I am wrong. So I would have to, at this point, don't want to, but I would have to take and rasterize the layer. so that I can edit it further. And basically I'm going to have to use my magic wand tool, select, deselect, use my magic wand tool and fill it with white. Select, deselect, yeah, so that worked. And do the same thing here. Use the magic wand tool to select the inside of the rectangle, because now this is a bitmap, it's not a vector shape anymore. So I can edit it like I would edit anything else in Photoshop. So I'm deselecting that. I'll take my sleeve and I'm going to drag it below my sleeve design. So now I have the white background there, and for the sleeve I'm going to also do the multiply so that I can see through it, and my image actually applies on top of the graphic. So you see I can get pretty far up the sleeve with this 19 inches. And if you have 11 by 17 paper, you just set yours up to, you know, similar parameters, but of course you're going to be more limited. So you still would be able to get all over the bottom hem there with 11 by 17, and you'd be able to go up about 16 inches from the edge of the sleeve, because you're going to need a little bleed room down there. Alright, so I am taking this bleed here. Didn't mean to do it just yet. I'm trying to duplicate this. So normally if you hold down Alt and drag it, you're going to be able to do that. So what I'm going to do so that it changes every time I use it, I'm going to convert this to, guess what? A smart object. So let's convert it to a smart object. Now I see this gradient fade off. I'm going to duplicate that, and right above it, I'm going to pull it above the sleeve, and then I'm going to right click and create a clipping mask. Of course I don't see it right now because it's still down here below. Let's pull it up, and for the sake of my preview I'm going to Control T, which allows me to transform it. I'm going to rotate, and I can get a great idea if it's straight by how parallel this is with my line. And I'm just going to bring that down there to the bottom. And for my sleeve print now, I'm going to turn my opacity back up completely so I can get an idea of what's going on. Excuse me, guys. Alright, so I have the same red fade up. If I were to change my colors on the smart object now, that would also change the color here. So now we're getting in template mode. Let's see if we want to add some text. I'm going to do, well, we'll wait to add the text because that's going to be last touches anyway. We want to see where our pictures are going to go. So you get an idea. In this one, it's just going to be a mirror image print. Well, not even a mirror image print, because we do have a nice design where it's kind of balanced. Let's say you didn't have balance. Let's say you had a very different top of the design than the bottom, and you wanted to maintain that, we would have to flip it. So I guess, hey, let's do it. Let's do the same thing. Oh no, let's wait, because I want to make sure that this is what we're going to be doing. So we'll just imagine the sleeve is done until it's ready to be done. So photos, as I was explaining earlier, the photo resolution really does limit how big you can blow things up. There is a website that a lot of you in the groups put me on, which was remove.bg. And I'm reviewing it to let you all know like how well it does or does not do. I've never done my photos like this before. I've always manually cut them out. However, I do have to give a positive review to the fact that this is a lot less work if your images especially are high resolution and have a clear distinction between the foreground and background. Here there is a little issue, so we can edit this. Oh, and I think it's been so long since I uploaded these because I uploaded them last night. It may not let me do it. Let's see. I might have to log back in. I'm thinking that's what it is. Yeah, my accounts. And then I have a subscription. So let me see. I think it'll show me what I've been working on. I want to say it saves it, but maybe not. Mm. Well, at least you get to see real time then. So if I go to remove background and upload an image, you can also get the website of a particular image and pull that in. So I'm gonna have to do one image at a time, but you'll see how fast it does in real time. So in real time, that's it. And you see there's some extraneous stuff there I would have to play with. So now you get to see how long this takes in real time when people give you multiple pictures. And it's not necessary that I use every last picture, but I probably will use the majority of these just so I can switch it up a little bit. And this one, of course, I'm going to have to clean up around here, but I just want to show you the limitations to this as well as how well it may or may not do depending on the type of photo you have. And see, that one cut out pretty clean. It looks like you can tell the difference between the foreground and background. Of course, anytime you have like the ground or grass or some object in front of a foot or a body part, that's going to be an issue, but we can always, based on our layout, kind of cover that up. So that one turned out well. Let's see the next one. And this is why you need to charge more when you do collages versus a single photo. It does take more time, it takes more resources, and it takes more mental energy to actually lay out. And this is what I was talking about when the ground kind of covers a certain area, but we disguise that with our layout and our art elements. So that one did well. But yeah, like I'm saying, definitely charge more for doing more photos. It is a lot more work. All right. And you'll have images where like cuts off the top of a person's head, or like the image is so close to the side of the body that it actually crops off the side, and you either have to deal with that with layout, or I could actually go in and paint the top of his helmet to make it look right. But don't worry about any of that stuff until you get to your layout phase. Layouts alone can hide a lot of imperfections. And you don't want to spend time perfecting images and you don't know how you're using them yet, or if you're going to use them. A lot of these pictures might be similar, so I may decide to use one out of every two that I have here. And it's a shout out to D-Jack. He plays for North Florida Christian, and they've been clients of mine for quite some time. He is a wonderful human being and a superb athlete as well. Runs track, football. I think he's on the varsity team as a freshman. But more than that, he's just a really upstanding kid. So kudos to him and mom holding it down. And I always get to do some interesting projects. And I think this one was a little too busy, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to pull it up anyway just to show you what it looks like when we pull that too busy one in there. See, it says could not identify the foreground. It's because it's just too much going on and it can't distinguish between foreground and background. So if I did really want to use this image, I would have to go in and manually cut this one out in Photoshop, but that's not a problem if I want the image, because that's how I've been doing things. So This has cut down my cutting time probably by about 20 minutes. Cutting out all these photos, well, me, it would take 20 minutes. It might take some of the beginners and intermediate users of Photoshop even longer, just because you're not used to the tools and the process. So I did want to show you how I can go in and edit. I'm going to edit. I want to download yet. I said I'm going to edit. Alright, so let's edit the full image. Now, the difference when you have a subscription is that you get so many credits to download full resolution images. And this program even has it where you can put, backgrounds on there, but we're photoshopping, so we're gonna put our own backgrounds in. What I'm interested in is how this cleans up. So I'm gonna zoom in, and they have an erase restore feature. So right now I'm gonna erase. You can see this brush is rather large. I can change the brush size so that it's brought in a little more. And let's see if I can get in here, not do too much damage. I may need to reduce this brush size a little bit more. Now this is harder to do with a mouse. So I am using a stylus, and it is still hard. This is the type of thing that I prefer to do in Photoshop, honestly. But it's not bad for that to just be done and done. And if you have a tablet, especially like an iPad, and you're doing this on with your Apple Pencil or a stylus on your tablet, this could be really easy. It honestly would be easier to do if you're coloring or drawing on the screen to erase and restore. So I'm going to go ahead and download that image. And it's going to download it, and it'll have remove BG as the file extension or attached to the name. And we'll close that one down now. So that did use up one of my credits. Now you don't use up your credits if you're doing the preview size, or you don't use up your paid credits anyway. They allow you, I think, 50 free preview downloads. So this one, it says full image is not available, and when you see that, it means that the original image itself is low quality. So what we're going to do is clean this up. So erase and restore, brush size, let's bring it down a little, increase the image. And I'm just showing you how you would do this if you were using this remove BG almost exclusively. I would venture to say that I would prefer to do this in Photoshop because I have more control. So I see how it's kind of eating away, but it's not a smooth sort of transition there. I prefer to use Photoshop for that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to download it like it is because the rest of it came out good. The problem that I have is when it cuts out here, it seems to be a little fuzzier, like it's not quite a hard outline. When I'm erasing, it's a hard outline. So to me, it doesn't really match, and I would rather do it in Photoshop where it matches. So I'll show you how to do that. But I'm going to go ahead and download this one as is. It shouldn't use any credit because it didn't have a high resolution version of it. But I'll show you how we'll clean that one up in Photoshop. Let's open in Photoshop-age. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Let's Control plus, and you can see these pixels now, and this is going to be one of my lower resolution images. So what I would do right here is I would use my pen tool, and I click and drag to get my shapes. If I want a corner, I just click. If I want a curve, I click and drag. So let's say right here was a corner, I could click click, and that's a corner. If I want a smooth curve, I would click and drag. As a matter of fact, I thought that was part his pants, but I do see that there's another person in the background there. This is really confusing because I think that's his leg, but it's getting cut off. And the good thing about this is you can edit the image a lot of times with just how you layer. So I shouldn't have to do the rest of this image because it's already cleaned up for me. Go there, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and create a mask here. And before I do that, as a matter of fact, yeah, let me do a mask. I'm going to double click because it is a vector mask right now. And I'm going to click on this mask, and it is literally a vector shape, but I still have the opportunity to feather it. And this is what I was saying the program doesn't give me online, the Remove BG. So I can feather it a little bit just to make it look like it doesn't have such a hard line, because this that it cut out before doesn't have a hard line. And click off of it, and now I see like I have a little bit of a fuzzier edge there, which is what I want. And apparently I need to change something here so I can directly select my nose. And this is the beautiful thing about having a mask that's not with the marching ants, that is actually a vector mask, because I can transform it, move it around. If I cut off something I didn't intend to, or if I need to add something, this whole mask layer here is editable. If I see this one, let's see, I want to, it's Alt, select it. Okay, so that looks good to me. I definitely wouldn't spend much more time, especially on your lower resolution images. I do have, I think that was a little piece of a towel or something hanging there. Let me see here. That got cut off. I'll let the towel hang. Or was that someone's leg in the background? I'm going to pretend like it was someone's leg in the background and just get rid of it. Alright, that's it. So now I can save the PNG. And that one's good to go. And let me see. I won't show you each of these pictures, but I want to show you the unique challenges that you're going to come across when you're cutting out pictures. So if it's not something, like I said, I probably won't even use this one. It'll be too difficult. This one, same thing. I would download it as is. Go ahead and bring it into Photoshop and clean it up. Let's see what else we got. This one cut out very clean by its own, but you can tell why. It's a clear distinction between foreground and background. The background is even more blurred, so I think it even uses that in the algorithm to tell what to cut out. And this one, I have the image of doing the full image or the preview image. It's not really that much difference in size. So I'm just going to download the preview image so that I don't waste up my credit. If this was a high resolution image like from a photographer, I would absolutely do the full image because it'll be worth it. It'll look that much cleaner, especially if we're blowing it up. This one, yeah, we're going to have to download the preview image again. Alright, from there, let's see what else. This one came out clean. And this one is a little bit different in size, so I may go ahead and use up my credit for that one. And I'm just looking at the pixel size to tell. That's a difference of about 300 pixels. So I believe that is worth, it's almost twice the size. That's worth downloading the better resolution image. I mean, this one is not. It's 445 to 508, 651 to 640. So I would just download the preview. The image itself isn't high enough resolution for it to charge me for a high resolution image. So I do like that it gives us that option, whether you want to use up your credit or not. And then this one I will definitely have to clean up. And this one's about 300 different, so I'm going to download the full image on this one. If your images don't look so good and you don't think you're going to be proud of your result because of the photo quality, then just let your customers know that. First and foremost, if they can't get better pictures, at least they will have the expectation that, you know, you would have wanted better pictures to have a better result. I'm going to use what I have. A lot of times I deal with this because the parents are, you know, dealing with screenshots of images or, you know, images they might be pulling off of Facebook. So you're going to have to just roll with the punches on that. This one is not that much of a difference to where I'll use up my credit. So I'll go ahead and download that one as is, and you'll see that I have to clean that up as well. And the thing is, I can bring these in like as is, and once I get them laid out, I can tell whether I need to clean them up more or not, because just by layering, you may not need to do anything with them. So I think that's all of them that I was going to use. I can go to my folder where they're all located, and let me sort by date instead of by name, and then I should see my most recents. The one that I pulled in, well, I haven't pulled any of them in yet. So I'm going to take all of the PNGs and hover over my Photoshop, hover over my file, and just drop them on there. And it's going to have me press enter for each and every image that I'm pulling in, which is cool because I kind of get to see them all come in one at a time, see what size they're coming in, and get an idea of how much I'm going to have to place. Now typically I would say the most you want to do is maybe 4 images. So you may want to have a price that you charge for doing 1 image, 4 images, and you know, maybe 8 images is where you stop, because then you can do front and back. And I'm probably going to do some color changes to make sure that all of my colors look the same, because for instance, some of the red uniform has this really dark red, and this red uniform here looks a little bright red. So we'll do some color adjusting just to make sure that everything looks consistent. Right now I'm just pulling on the corner. I'm doing Control T, pulling on the corner just to change the size so I can see what images I'm working with. Control T, pulling on the corners there. Control T. And then once all of these are about the same size, I can see which ones don't look like a nice resolution, especially when it's put up against another image that may have better resolution right next to it. So you see, this is what I was talking about. These red jerseys look different than this one, so I would basically equalize these out with some kind of color color change techniques. So usually that's hue saturation is what I like to use for that, but we'll see once we get to it if that's what we're going to use. So this one in particular, let's say I want to go ahead and cut out the excess players here. I'm going to go ahead with my pen tool here, zoom in, and then I'm just going to make sure that I get the parts that I want to keep. So I'm clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging. And you can see the more I zoom in, the more pixelated this is. But again, that's why we're doing, you know, the multiple pictures too, because these images would not look great blown up full bleed on any shirt. Even like on a toddler size shirt, this would probably be problematic. And I'm missing a little bit of the red from the jersey here. The remove BG took that out. But I'm gonna guess by the time I pull all these images together, you would not even see that issue. If you did, you could just color it in. Alright, so that is good for me. I'm going to go ahead and create a mask. And I can take my mask, double click it, select it, and feather just a little bit. You can see how much you're feathering it there. I'm going to feather just a tad so it matches the existing cut edges. One more down, that's good. And now I can exit, tell it yes I want to save, and it should update it to my image here now. Simple as that. And once you stop being afraid of using the pen tool to cut stuff out, you will get a lot more efficient with it. I used to cut out all of my images with the pen tool. So the remove BG feature has helped. Definitely when I have a lot to cut out. So, and once you learn this whole template setup, you can, like whether you're designing your own templates or using mine, you can literally just focus on cleaning up the background from your images, and you can throw them into a template. And some of my apprentices can tell you how easy it is, like to do a 5-minute design once I have completed a template. But I do like making these videos because I like for y'all to see how much time and energy it takes to make these templates. So you all have an understanding and appreciation for it. And then also you kind of get an idea of what goes into it. So you feel bad if you share these templates that somebody didn't pay for, or you know, you basically giving away the art. It takes a lot of time and energy to come up with this stuff. So I'm not telling you what to do because I can't control what you do, but I'm asking you to have some understanding of what goes into this stuff, and you know, some respect for the craft. And if you take your time and design this template, I don't think you would be giving it away. So just keep that in mind, guys. I want to keep creating quality content for you all. So in return, I just ask for your support and views. You don't have to buy anything ever from me. But if you do, I would like to make sure that you understand it should stay with you. You purchased it. Make your money on you know, using the templates and charging people for design. Please don't give this stuff away. Okay. All right. So yeah, I'm thinking we definitely need to adjust some of the reds here. These two reds are a little brighter than the others. So let's show you how to do that real quick. And if you want to, you can rename these images, but I like the fact that on the artboard I can right click and I can see what I'm touching, and it will select whatever I'm selecting from this menu over on the layers panel. So literally when I'm clicking here, this is DJack. This is the image of the sweatshirt, and that's my background. That's what I'm touching when I right click in this area. So if you label these things, it will be easier. In this case, I'm not going to label the photos, but I will label the layers that we're working on, like the sweatshirt. All right, so let's new adjustment layer and do a hue saturation so we can play with this red a little bit. And then I'm going to make sure I check use the previous layer to create a clipping mask, because the changes that I'm making right now, I don't want to affect everything below it. I just want to affect only the one thing below it. So you'll see that it created a little arrow here. That means it's only going to apply to this item below it. Otherwise, it would apply to everything below it. And sometimes you want that, like when you want to change all your reds to purples, you definitely want to do that globally. So you want to put that on top of everything and not use a clipping mask. Let's see, so instead of master, we're going to go to our reds and hike it all the way up and down just so we can see, is that what we're changing? Yes. And I'm guessing there are magentas and yellows in here too. But I want you to understand that once we change the red, we're also changing the skin tones. So you'll get a chance to see if that affects it to a negative degree. Then you can kind of paint away the color effect on the skin if it makes that much of a difference. But I think it's actually making the skin look better, more believable. So that's it. I just changed up that red a little bit, made it a little bit darker. We could add more or less saturation. I think it was oversaturated in the first place. I brought the saturation down just a little bit. and brought the darkness down. And then the hue, we really didn't even have to change it, but if you wanted to change the hue, you could see how that could affect it. So I'm going to bring it back to 0 because I like the hue that it was. Brought the saturation down just a little, and the lightness brought it more to a darker tone. All right, that's it. Now, if I want to do the same thing to 26, I could take a copy of this that I just made and apply it to 26, but apply it to this image. However, it's not the same amount of brightness and everything, so I might as well just do it from scratch. So I'm going to right click, go to that image, and see how it's selected in my layers panel over here. So let's do and then you can come down here and do this too. So this is your layer adjustments as well. So I can do hue saturation from here instead of doing it from the layer option up top. So let's go red once more. And I'm going to go ahead and start making it darker because that's the most obvious thing on this one, was the red was brighter. And this one didn't have such a bright saturation, like an oversaturation. So changing saturation isn't really necessary here. And you can get real detailed, like you can make all of these reds exactly the same, at least by eye anyhow. And yeah, I'm probably not going to do that. And I think the human eye is not going to catch all that with how busy we're intentionally making this. Now I want you to see that I did not create a clipping path for this one. So because I didn't, it is globally affecting the entire image. So if I want to just affect this image and I didn't do it to start off with, I would right click and create a clipping mask. And you have to right click on the word hue saturation, not the actual icon. Alright, so now that just changed that one, and already my images are looking a bit better. This one here looks like his face is a little orangey, so I might go in and do a hue saturation here. And let's see, it probably would be either reds or cyans for a skin tone. And one thing I can do is make it all the way one way or another. That black is just so nice. Okay, let me do, before I do anything else, I'm going to right click and create a clipping mask so that I'm only changing this layer. I double click on it, brings my options back. I want to make sure I'm on the reds level. So it might just be a saturation thing. Sometimes you don't have to make things lighter or darker. I can bring the saturation down a little bit and it doesn't have that overkill of the skin tone. Now one thing we want to do too, sublimation tends to like print really dark and contrasted when it comes to the shadows, especially for African American skin. So we can take all of these images and group them, and then let's say we want to do the levels, because the levels deals with the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows. And one thing my brother taught me was just to go ahead and lighten up most of your photos. And then my granny would get me too when I designed her programs. And her programs are printed with a laser printer or an offset printer, and she always complains how dark the images are. And it's true. Like it will look true color on the layout, but as soon as it goes to a printer, for some reason, especially black skin tones, we tend to have them either look really, really dark and too much contrast, or you don't see features well. And I think that's just how the print process is set up when it comes to the blacks. If you ever notice, if you try to print like even these pants here, it might not show a good delineation between the highlights and the shadows within this the black pants, and that's because it just doesn't have a discerning eye or ability to translate that. So like even when I do my business cards and I'm doing some kind of black on black or gray on black, I have to make sure my gray contrasts from the black. Otherwise, it'll look like one flat background and it will be misleading when I send them a proof and they can see the gray kind of contrasting with the black. But then when they get the cards, it looks like a flat black. And that's because it's not enough contrast between colors. So it looks like this one is the only one that's just looking blown out, which blown out is pretty much when an image kind of has too much highlight in it. But what I can do is I can go to this one itself. I can create a levels just for that photo, but that photo was very brightened up. You remember we had to change the red in it anyhow. So I can go in and manually change the levels just for this image so that it still looks good compared to the others. And I still want the highlight. It looks very animated. Looks very handsome there. All right, I think we're good on that. Change my reds up a little bit here now. Let me go to my hue saturation for that one. And it's because I globally change stuff, but it's cool because I can go right back and add more saturation to that red now, deepen it up a little bit, and then I can move it because it's a little more towards the orange hue, and I want it to be more towards that deeper red hue. So I actually changed the hue a little bit on that one. Same thing with this one. Reds, let's go. And I can make my reds a little darker. I don't need more saturation on that one, but I don't want it to be burgundy either. So I think that's good enough, especially be playing with colors. But I do want y'all to explore. The hue saturation, I'll tell you, is one to really play with the colors. What's the last one we just used? The levels. It's good to play with the brightness and intensity. I used to use this one a lot when Photoshop first came out, or not first came out, when I first began using it. We used to use brightness and contrast to either brighten up the picture or create more contrast. And now I've learned to use levels because it's more precise. The other thing is you can change it to black and white. That's a filter, so that's really helpful to use. And then you're not actually making your photos black and white. So when it's a filter, you can always turn it off or turn it back on. You're not damaging your photos. And this is what I want you all to get used to when you're doing your edits. It's always easy to take off a layer that you don't like, then to have completely changed your original image. Now you have to go back and re-download the image, recut it out, and do whatever effects. Gradient map is cool too. I use that a lot. Like if I want to change the overall colors, let's say to like purple and gold, because there might not be a second color here. Well, I'll say, well, give me gold as my mid-tone, and it'll do some, kind of creative effects there. But that's it for our photos. Now we got to get on layout mode, which what I'm going to do is probably some photos on the front, and maybe that's my alarm telling me that I'm supposed to be doing something right now, but I'm here with you all. All right, so let's see. And then this is also where we can see, do photos look alike? Is it necessary to have so many photos? We'll figure that part out. But I do know that she wanted the words. That's my boy on there, so I know I have that here on another file. So I'm going to drag this from this file onto this one. And then what you have to be careful of is when you mock this up, you have to ask yourself, is this how I'm going to be able to press this? And that's what I'm saying here, that when you lay this out, it is imperative that you know how this is going to be pressed and applied. So for instance, that's my boy, I would have to do a 13 by 19, and I'll do it in just a moment. So I'm going to take the bottom hem one of the rectangles from the bottom hem, and I'm going to Alt drag it up so that I created a copy, and then I'm going to put it above this sleeve. We'll create a new group, and I'll just call that center front. I'm going to Control T so I can transform it. And I'm trying to see if we will go vertical with it. Or horizontal. So I think I'm going to go vertical with it because this will give me the ability to kind of do two side by side. And then we'll do the whole multiply as the blend mode there so we can see through it. But you can see that you're going to have some overlapping. You want to have some overlapping, but you also don't want to kill whatever you're repressing over, because you're going to more than likely do the background image first and then come in and do your foreground image, because you want that one to have the least over presses. But now I see, okay, if I stand up to 13 by 19 pages, I can pretty much get fully onto this chest area. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 the sleeves, 5, 6, 7, 8 for the bottom, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now I've gotten into 12 sheets. And yeah, you'll see how this gets. But that's 12 versus, if I were, how many did I say it would be before? A lot. Ask 21 Savage that question. Alright, so let's get into what we don't want to do. You see this neckline up here? We can put images close to it, but just understand that the closer we get to these seams, we're going to have issues with pressure. So, for instance, you don't want to put anybody's face right there because more than likely it's going to look jacked up. Let's see. I also want to get a good blend of the jerseys style. So I have red and the white jersey. So definitely trying to decide which one I want where. The number on the back too, what I'll do for that is most likely I'll probably just do one image on the back. First of all, it'll be less work. Second of all, it'll be like the whole name and number, but then I can make him kind of look like he's running out of the number. So let's see. That's probably one of her favorites there. Mom loves to see her son smiling. He's got a gorgeous smile, so understand that. And then that's my boy. I want to make sure that it's not going past where the paper ends, and I'll change the colors of it and everything. And then usually my goal is to not have a seam, you know, in the middle of someone's face or anything like that. I really, as a matter of fact, let me see if I do this one as a 13 by 19 across the chest. Might have better luck with not having to seam it. Let's see, where are we? Center front. I'm going to delete the center front copy. And let's just do Control T. It's because we have this pocket on the front too. That's going to throw us off a little bit. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. Because the shirt itself is about 25 inches wide for the center of the body, so 19 inches should give us decent coverage. But you will start to see when I start reducing this down how much we may end up losing. But another thing that I do is I'll take the individual players and I'll print them to where they're kind of like stickers, where you can cut them out and just randomly place them places. So we have that option too. I say, you're seeing me work this out in my head just as I would be doing all by myself. So you're getting this raw and uncut. That one, let's see, let's put all my like images together. So I'm gonna put all of my white jersey images together in the red so I can get them. And see, I haven't cleaned this one up yet, but I haven't decided if I'm gonna use it. So I think that one would probably want to be one of the least likely to get used, just because it doesn't really show his face, and then the action in it isn't as impactful as the action in some of the other running photos. That's just my opinion. And in this one, like, he was being pulled on, but now that the person isn't in the image pulling on him, it looks kind of like he's falling down. So then that might be my next least favorite. So I kind of will throw those together, and I'm like, okay, here we go. I got two really great white jersey images. And then same thing here. I'm looking at action. I love the one where he's pointing, because in that image he was actually pointing to mom, so I know that means something to her. As a matter of fact, that one might be a good one to put on the back of the shirt. I think she would like that. The one where he's resting, probably not as important. Still a decent image though. The resting images are not as impactful to me as the action images. And I also look at it from the point of view of the kids. And I'm talking about the guy and girl athletes. If you don't come hard with their pictures, like, they're actually embarrassed to have their photos on the shirt. So I gauge my designs on, if the kids are proud and want a version of it for themselves, then we have done our job, because they don't think it's corny. All right, and you know how hard it is for kids not to think things are corny these days. So I think I found my 3 reds and 2 whites. And then I said I was gonna put, okay, let's do this one on the back, the one where he's pointing. And so that's gonna be the back. Yeah, I think that'll work out well. And then we'll just work on the composition here. Like I said, I have the ability to press, multiple presses on here too. So if I lay this out right, I'll know, okay, well, I'll go ahead and press these little ones up in the corner. That way the big one, then that way you can get something on the shoulders and make it look like it's all over. Problem is though, if you overlap these on your preview, you're going to have to overlap them precisely like that on your final layup, and it's probably not going to happen like that. So you just want to avoid overlapping if you're going to do that, or you're just going to have to tile and make sure that you tile really well. Let's see. I'm thinking we can bring this one above that white one. There we go. And this also depends on whether I want to put the legs in the image or not. I typically will fade off like this one. I'll create a layer mask, and it has like an abrupt ending, but I will take my paintbrush and choose my soft brush and make sure that black is selected as my foreground color. And you can't see it because he's wearing white pants, but it's just fading off the bottom of that image. So you may not see it until you press it, but when there are hard lines in it, you can tell, like even this leg here. So what I may do for this one is, let's do, and I'm just playing around with the orientation. And sometimes this takes longer than absolutely anything else. And I do have, like, I have a template that is I think it's the Color Splash one, The tutorial will be the one, I believe, with the Green Bay Packers, but it has a mode on it where you can drop the pictures, these photos, into a smart object layer, and it will kind of make it look like it has this HD photo effect with the oil painting effects on it as well. And then I'll have one coming out soon for that'll almost cartoonize the images too. So those are different templates, but what you could do is edit your images in those templates and bring those in, and then you'll have different effects to the photos themselves. So once you get the gist of this, you'll be creating your own stuff. Now, this is where I was saying we can get creative. So let's say I want this image to run into the bottom of the shirt here, but I wouldn't mind it kind of having a multiplicative effect, meaning that basically matter of fact, I'll just show you. So if I go to multiply right now, this is the best way to figure out how something is going to be affected by multiple presses or pressing on top of something. So I hit multiply, and you can see that his leg is going to come through right here. So if I were going to layer this, like let's say I'm going to print this on his own little sheet of paper and press it after the fact, then I would want to make sure that I fade off the areas that are touching so that when it overlaps, you don't see his foot through the jersey. You don't see his hand going through the head. And that's where I'm saying you have to be particularly careful about how much you want to spend, how much time you want to spend, the energy you want to spend actually laying out. But what I would do, go ahead and take this one, and I'm going to hold down my shift key in this image, and I'm just going to bring it up so that we have less touching. And then my center front, I would bring that up so that I know, okay, that's my actual artboard for this one. This one may be its own image. And the same thing with this one. What I would probably end up doing is just having these printed, and I can print these side by side on a 13 by 19 once I get my layout done. And then just cut those out separately. So now it's going to look like you did a whole lot of tiling, and it's barely any tiling here done. So another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and select all of these. I'm going to group the ones that have the layer effects to them. Not the layer effects, the, what is that called? The layer adjustments. Because all together, I want to tell it that we're going to multiply all of these. And the reason why is I want to see which images are going to be touching others and how that affects the next layer underneath. Alright, and so you see like the image here, you can see the hoodie indentation and shadows through the image. We won't print it like that, but it gives me a good idea when it comes to layouts. So definitely the leg here is affecting, if I were to do this as a separate press. So let's see if I can avoid that. I could avoid that by placement. For instance, if I take this one, this is where you just get clever. And I want y'all to see how much time this takes, because this is the stuff that takes time. So like I said, charge accordingly. Now this 13 by 19 is one page. So what I'm attempting to do here is make it so that this could be printed as one page, and then I can print these as kind of like fat head stickers, you know how they go, and I could press them separately based on what space I have left. Alright, so this one is good sidewise, and I can fade off the bottom of his feet there. This one I think makes for a good size there, although it's not going to be printed on this page. I decrease the size just a little bit because I do want to make sure that it's going to fit on 13 by 19. And we'll test that Let's test it down here. So this one fits on the 13 by 19. Let's make sure this one fits on the 13 by 19. You see how it doesn't fit? So let me take it on down. Control T. Alright. So now I know that I can fit both of those on the 13 by 19. I'll move it to where I would visually want it. As a matter of fact, Control C, let me send it back over here. I can increase this size a little bit because I want him to be a little bit bigger. And then what I would do is just rotate him on the page. When I get ready to print them, I won't do it right now, but when I get ready to print them, I'll rotate them on the page so that he fits on that 13 by 19, but I liked the scale that he was at before. So I'm going to go back and leave him that larger size. And then this one is about the same size, or same scale, so I'm good with that. And he would end up kind of on the side here. Now that's my boy would have to fit on the 13 by 19. So I'm going to Control T, bring this down and scale just a little bit. So let's see, I can decide now if I'm going to do this tile through the middle or standing straight up. So let's do center front. We'll call this center front landscape. And then we'll duplicate that group and we'll do a center front portrait. And I'll do X2, so times 2. That means that we're going to need 2 of them for the front here. Control T. Let's do that. And then that way I can determine if we're going to do split or a full press here. Like I said, we might have some elements of design that come up here, but we are not going to put faces too close to this collar. So that's my boy. Let's bring that down. I have this whole area down here to come. You got to keep in mind that there is a pocket down here too. So I would not want to put any faces or important legible text. Like if you had small text going across the bottom, the boy will be fine, because even if it has a break, like if the pocket breaks through the word boy, you're going to read that just fine. But if you had smaller words there would be trouble. Alright, so I'm thinking that I'm going to bring these in so that they fit on this 13 by 19. Then that's one less press. Let's see, and I get to bring that's my boy down a little bit. I'm just having a little bit difficult time with this layout. because this layout, his arms are so wide. Let me bring him down. Bring this one up. And let's see. Maybe I'll balance it with another photo that maybe I wasn't going to use. Or you know what? I do like this one now. It kind of uses this balancing image. That works. I'm going to bring it, bring the size up a little bit and then fade off the legs so that I don't have to worry about them sticking outside of the art area. Again, I'm going to pull this image down from the collar a little bit. And honestly, this doesn't have like a face or anything, so I wouldn't even care if that went over the collar. In fact, I might do it on purpose. Alright, and I'm going to fade off where the foot is so it's not overlapping the other arm. We'll do a layer mask and paint that off a little bit. And don't be afraid to take away stuff that was there, because some of these images don't even have proper feet and stuff on them. So if you have to delete some feet, just don't feel bad about it. Do what you have to do so your design makes sense. Alright, so that takes me down to, that's one sheet of paper for these two images here. And then I get a chance to overlap. I like to overlap into my bleed off in abstract area because it looks more believable as an all over design. But you will see when I actually press this, there's going to be some variation between where the paper contacts. So for these, I do like to kind of get in there and cut really close, because the transfer paper itself will lift some of the ink that is embedded into the fabric. Another thing we could do is just press the, and I think maybe that's what we will do, press the abstract elements last. That way we know we're not taking up valuable space where we're trying to fit our photos. So let's see. We have that photo we're going to use for the back. We haven't used this one. We have not used these two, but we'll just have them just in case. I definitely want to use this one on the back. So what I'll do for the back is center front, portrait. Now this is going to be ×1. It would be ×2 if I was using 2 pages of tile. So I'm going to duplicate this group, and then I'm going to call this the center back portrait ×1. And I'm going to turn off front portrait. Then what I'll do when all of this is really laid out is I will clip the elements to each of these sections. And this one looks like he needs to come in just a little bit, it's a little too close to the edge. And Control T, I'll take your size down just a little bit so I can pull them up a little higher. Alright, so we're going to take this one, I'm going to hold down Shift, take that one, hold down Shift still, and take this one, and I'm going to group all those together. That's not what I wanted to do. group 4 is this one, and this is where it would be good to name them. Okay, have group 4 selected, shift, and then I'll select that individual one. We didn't have to change any colors on that one, and this individual one. Now we'll group those. And I'm going to put that into my front portrait. Then I'm going to turn it off right now. And that's my boy. We'll change the colors of that in a little bit. I know that might be irking you right now, but that's one of the least of our concerns. Changing the colors of the text is going to be easy. And I'm going to go ahead and drop that into my center front. And so this group 5, I'm going to go ahead and merge that with the effects because it gets a little confusing. So merging it is basically merging the hue, saturation, and levels that I did with the image. So now it is 1. I'm going to do the same thing for this one. It's group 4. Let's go ahead and merge that group. And then I'm going to delete this group, and it's going to ask me a question if I want to put duplicate. I meant to hit delete. I don't know why duplicate and delete are right by one another. Sounds like a very sad choice, but when it asks me to delete the group, it's asking me if I want to delete the group only or the group and the contents. I just want to delete the folder itself so that these are no longer in a subfolder. So I just deleted the group only. If I would have deleted the group and the contents, anything in that folder would be deleted as well. So now I can disable viewing my center front and focus on how my back would look. Now that that's my boy, I guess this would be a good time to go ahead and change our colors because we can use that same type of shadowing and color scheme for the name and number on the back. So obviously we're going to do some color changes here. Let's do the effects for the my. Right now it's got a yellow color overlay. I'm going to do the color overlay as the red. Looks good. And then it's got some of a stroke on here. So the white stroke is cool, makes it kind of look like a sticker. This blue stroke is a gradient, but we can change it to be our own gradient. So we'll do red and red, and maybe the lighter highlighter red. I like choosing from the photo to choose my colors. And then maybe I'll choose a black, and I'm going to make that towards the other end. And all this is doing is just adding a little bit of gradient to this little outline here. Just makes it stand out a little bit more. And honestly, the black seems to make things pop a little more, so I'm going to give the black a little more prominence. And we'll just give it a little hint of the red. There we go. And then for the dads, we'll probably do the black on the dads, and then the boy will do red. So for boy, looks like it's got an effect on the whole group because I have the boy and the football kind of as one unit. So we'll do the color overlay here. Select the red. Looks good. Okay, it has that satin effect. That works out well. Bevel and emboss. Might make that one stand out a little bit and change the depth and size. And these are things like I really do want you to play with because you'll get into how this makes your design look like it could not have possibly been done with vinyl or even screen print. And I'm just playing with the settings here to see if I get an effect that I really like. And right now, the gloss contour it has this angular setup, but you can make your own. And that's what will change how your embossing looks. But I kind of like this angle. And I'm just playing with the settings here. Highlight, I want my shadow to go a little bit darker. And then maybe my highlight won't be as strong because it's changing my red from my previous one. So I do want it to be consistent there. So I'm good with that. And then the stroke, of course, it's got a blue gradient on there. We're gonna switch that up. So we'll go to black. We'll do red. And we'll go back to black. Delete that one. And I'm trying to keep a little bit of red in that outline. Okay, so I have a little bit of red in there. And I can also change my scale. And the angle. I want to see how that affects where my red pops up. There we go. I just want to be a little hint of red in the outline. That looks cool to me. Okay, and for the that's, we're gonna double click on the effects for that one and make it black color overlay. And I might not choose an exact black because if I want to be able to see gradients, I would have to almost choose like a gray. So I've got more of a gray selected so that when I do my bevel and emboss and I do the satin overlay and color dodge, we're going to choose white as my satin. Choose a little bit lighter gray. So it makes it look a little more 3D. I don't know if you can tell, but it's got a little bit of an effect there. And those are the things that matter to me. Little small details that you can change and make it look a lot more dynamic. So now what I may do for this is change to a red gradient here, red and black. And I might do this lighter color where the lighter blue is. Let's do the lighter color of the red. And then where the blue is again, let's change that color to the darker red. Say okay. And kind of going for that. And here, I'm going to choose a straight, like dark black. And give it a little contrast. I think that works. And now from here, let's say, for instance, I want to take the style of the my for the back. I'm going to alt and drag it. Of course, I'm probably not going to use that font for the name and number on the back. I'm going to make that look a little more collegiate. But I could take that my copy and I'm going to drag it to the center back. So now I can turn off my center front. And now I'm working on name and number. So I believe I'm going to be doing D-Jack. Honestly, I kind of like this font for the name. So we'll proof it to Mom and see what she thinks about it. Just doing Control-T, increasing that size there, because this is a 13 by 19 that we'll use on the back. And then of course the number 26, so I'm going to Alt, bring that down. The number, we may not use this font for, we'll see in just a second. 26. And we definitely won't be using that font because that was a promo font, so it doesn't have the numbers. So let's do a different font for the numbers. And it looks like they use like standard collegiate looking font. So I really like this one. What's that? That's the Texans. That looks like a good one. And what I was going to do was, depending on how big we were printing this on the back, I wanted to have a photo of him kind of running out of the numbers. That's a really cool effect you can do. Now what I don't want to do is this one, what I can do is I can thread the back so I don't have to worry about the front pocket pretty much coming through my image area here. Same thing with the hood. This is just going to be one front press. So the thing that I would worry about with the hood would actually be this the abstract layer below, which is going to be affected by the indentions, and I'll put some foam on the inside and try to avoid that. But a lot of times you're just not going to be able to avoid it, and it's just part of the imperfections that come with sublimation. So let's see, I got him here. Let's go ahead and wrong image, Control Z, undo. And this is, I named it's named group 6, so let's rename this pointing so that I don't know which image it is. Now right now I have it on multiply, but I'm going to take it off of multiply because I wanted to see what it's going to look like printed in front of the 26. And I mean, it's kind of appropriate. His foot's cut off anyway, so I can have him looking like he's coming out of the 26, where it looks almost intentional that his foot is cut off. And you can still tell it's a 26. What I'm going to do is increase the thickness of the outline for the 26 just to make it pop a little bit more. Double click on the effects. And let's change the stroke size. So when I change the black stroke size, I'm also going to have to change the white stroke size and also increase the drop shadow effects. And this way it's more proportional to the name. So drop shadow, add a little bit of spread and distance. Distance I think is fine. I just want it to look like the effects are proportional to the original effects of the name. And of course these images here, let me grab this one and this one. I'm going to hold down shift so I can select both of them. And then I'm going to group those and call those extra photos. And I'm going to make sure that I bring those up to the forefront so I don't forget to print them, which I did that before. Extra photos, let's just bring it all the way to the top. Oh, you know what? I forgot I had my levels to change all of my photos. I just bring it all the way to the top, and that way I won't forget to print with my levels on. And then this one, obviously, had a hue saturation on it somewhere. I merged it already. Okay, so this is alright, so I'm going to turn off my extra photos. Now this is what my back would look like. You see, we've definitely put in some time to this thing. So please make sure you are charging accordingly. Alright, now what I might do for this one is add a drop shadow. So let's do pointing image so it looks like he is kind of jumping out of the number. And I can change the distance and the spread and size to kind of make that look a little more or less dramatic. I think that's good. Now remember I was telling you, depending on how you're going to end up using this image, this is already not the highest quality image. I don't want to draw attention to it by the fact that the top of the helmet's cut off here. So what I may do is go ahead and just create a shape here with my pen tool. I'm just guesstimating what the curvature would look like there. And I'm going to go ahead and create that as a shape. And it automatically filled in with the black, but I'm going to go to my properties and oh, that's what I could have done. My properties up top, I had path and then I had a shape. So that's how I probably could have changed the other one earlier. I know. Right, so for the fill color, actually, you know what, that black doesn't look bad at all. But I might just make it a little less. No, it doesn't look bad. Normally I have to make a color up, but that looks good. Now I'm gonna bring it underneath the pointing, and then I'm gonna go ahead and merge these two. Merge those layers. Well, before I merge, I'm going to copy the layer style for the drop shadow because I'm going to take it off. I'm going to clear that layer style because I want it to collectively apply to the new shape with the image. So I'm going to merge those layers and then I'm going to paste the layer style so it'll add the drop shadow to the whole thing. All right, there he is. And then that's 113 by 19 print for the back. So this is going to be a task, but it's not quite ready to preview to mom yet. And I'm thinking also that we could do the logo and name. I think I have the logo in this folder. Say I did it in Illustrator some time ago. Yep. So pull that one and maybe do the logo and do the word eagles going down. Maybe do NFC at the top, then eagles going down. We'll see how that looks. But other than that, it's going to take me a little second for Illustrator to pop up. That is pretty much it. So the next time I'll be showing you how we're going to print all of these different elements. And if you want to tile, how you would sort of tile these. And for my color red overlay, I'm going to double click on this one and make that red a little bit darker. And it should change it in all the areas that I have that gradient. All right. Let's make it a little bit darker. And then once I close it, make sure I say yes, I want to save. And it should update on my main image file. All right, and I just made it a little bit deeper red. And that should be good enough there. I don't know if I don't think I'm gonna put anything on the hood of this one. But if I do, it'll probably be the same kind of element here. And I would just pretty much cut it in half and use it to circle around the hood just so that it doesn't have white right around the hood area. So I may do that. The other thing I need to be aware of is when I'm placing this graphic on the back, I'm probably going to want to put it a little bit lower so that when the hood hangs, it doesn't cover up his face, even if it covers up his name a little bit. So that's going to be my deal when it comes to placement. Alright, let's ignore, apply to all, ignore. And what I'm doing is I'm just grabbing the eagle image here because I'm not going to be able to use the words. As a matter of fact, I can take this white out. from here. Let's take that white out and let that be transparent. And then this is Illustrator. It's a whole nother program. It just happens to be what I do my vectors in. You might do vectors in other programs. That's fine. The good thing about it is you can bring vectors in to Photoshop. You can place them. I am just copying and pasting it since this is a compatible program, and it's going to place it as a smart object. So when I need to edit it in the future, I can double click it. It'll open up in Illustrator, and I can go at it from there. So what I'm doing essentially is changing the orientation of this so that it fits with the angle of the paper that I'm doing right now, and I can literally put it right up against there and make sure that it's the same angle, because when I get ready to print, I am going to reorient this. And I'm not holding down shift while I am changing the size of this because I want it to change proportionately. And I'm going to get this as close as I can to this edge because I want it to kind of look like it's on the edge, but you're not really going to get that effect unless you do a true wraparound. Like literally, you can put this image in the middle, and then once you wrap it around the sleeve, you will have a crease in the middle, and you just have to be very, very careful about how you're pressing it, and use some type of platen or some type of insert. And we're not going to do that. We're going to keep it simple. And as a matter of fact, we could keep this really simple and only use one 13x19 sheet. And let me show you how that goes about. So, this would decrease definitely. Let's see, this is that rectangle. I'm going to take one of these rectangles off, and then we're going to focus on only using one 13x19. That will make this process so much simpler. And then we can, at this point, take this image and make it skinnier, because what's going to happen is that sleeve is not really going to let you press 13x19. At the most, what we'll do is open the sleeve up, and it probably will give us a good like 8 or 9 inches in width. But we would at least be able to make it look like it is in the center of the sleeve on the outside. So then we could do like the logo, number 26. And then I would even take this fade off because I would want it to look a little more clean edge, so that we could bring this image upper shoulder area. So we would make it kind of look like a jersey. And then if I really wanted to, I can create a separate strip of just the red gradient, and I could fade that up from the edges of the sleeves, and we could just use one sheet of paper to do that. So let's do that. And that way my design stays proportional. All right, so I'm making that, and we'll do the 26. So we'll take the same 26 here. As a matter of fact, let's make it a what? Smart object. So that when I take it and move it, if I change this number, I'm just bringing this to the top for now. Control T. I'm going to transform it to be even with this paper. And really, this is not how I'm supposed to lay this out all straight first and then rotate it for the purpose of previewing to the customer or creating your mock-up. But because I don't want you all to get confused and try to do all these angles, and then when you set it straight up to print, you got different angles going on. However, this template should be set up to make it look right regardless. So we have the number, we have the logo. And see, I'm not happy with the red in this logo, so if, you know what, I'm going to show you how to do this if you didn't have Illustrator, because most of you don't have Illustrator. I don't want you to feel like you have to buy it. So I'm going to use, first, I'm going to select deselect, because I didn't mean to select that. I'm going to right click my Vector Smart Object. I'm going to rename this Eagle logo. And I am going to select the red, and I'm going to take off contiguous. So deselect, I'm going to show you what the difference. Contiguous is selecting all the color that's touching that's light. If I don't select contiguous, it selected all the red in the image regardless of what was touching. So that becomes helpful, and it's very intentional how you use that. So I want this to be the darker red. It's not going to let me paint right on this layer because I'm preserving it as a smart object. So I'm going to do a layer above it and just paint. I have my paint bucket selected, but in order to grab the red, I'm going to hold down Alt. It turns into a color picker. I select that red. Now when I hit with my paint button, it has filled that selection with red. So I can do deselect, select, deselect, where are you? And now it has the darker red. Alright, so I've got that. And then I probably won't do the words going down. I think I'll just keep it straight up, the number and the eagle. And then what's going to happen is this image, oh, this is perfect. This also shows you what happens with the smart object. So remember I was telling you you're going to have a limited space for the sleeve. What we're going to do is edit, transform. I'm going to distort this because I want to show you if you were really putting this on a sleeve, you're going to have less room at the bottom than at the top. And I really should be doing this standing straight up. Matter of fact, let me just do this right. So just in case you're doing this at home, you won't be totally wrong. So I'm going to take the sleeve, hold down shift, I'm going to grab my eagle, I'm going to grab my little number here, and then I'm going to grab my abstract design, and I'm going to control T. I'm going to go ahead and transform it to where it's sitting straight up. Now I did it for visualization purposes so you can see how I'm coming up with the sleeve design. I forgot something. I need to select the red on the wings right there. So I'm going to hold down shift and I have to be on selection mode. Shift and I have to be touching it. And that would probably be layer 9. I'm guessing. Yep, layer 9 is the wing color. Okay, so now I'm gonna control T, which is to transform. I'm gonna rotate it to where it's standing straight up. And if I'm not sure if it's 90 degrees, I'm gonna come over here to the edge of my paper and use that as a gauge. And it's not exactly straight up. It's a little bit off, but this is why I should have designed it straight up in the first place, because just being a little bit off can take you, take a half an inch off your printable area. Okay, I'm going to zoom in just to make sure. And this is all visually, but I think I got it right there. Okay, the reason why I'm doing it this way is so that now I can tell if I'm doing things exactly vertical. So the way our abstract design is right now, it's very rectangular. So what I want to do is take this our design here, and I want it to taper towards the end of the sleeve. And the way we're going to do that is do a edit, transform, and less distorted. Matter of fact, it might also be showing me that this is not exactly even, which is good to see now. There we go. Alright, so now we can edit, transform, distort, and I'm going to take this corner, bring it in, and there's some extra mess somewhere in this file, so it's not exactly distorting how I would want. So let me go in and see what this extra stuff is, because it would be so much easier if my rectangle was close into where my image is. So I'm going to delete whatever extra stuff is keeping me. Alright, so everything looks like it's down here. What's there? There. And so what I'm going to do is crop all of this extra mess out of here. And really this should be no more than 13 inches in height, but I have some extra stuff here. And I'm telling it not to delete the crop pixels. So if you see here where it says delete crop pixels, if I crop this and things are in the way like this paint splotch here, it will literally cut it crudely off, and I don't want it to do that. So I don't want to tell it to delete the crop pixels. What I would rather do is go ahead and crop the artboard and move my elements so that they are not close to the edge, or I can take where those elements are so that I don't have like a paint splash that just abruptly cuts off. I don't like that at all. So I may take this whole thing and do a layer mask, and then just go in with my soft brush and just clean up these edges so that I don't have anything that could embarrass me as far as being cut off, especially when you think you're doing a really nice design and then you find out that you've got stuff just hanging off the edge there. What I'll do a lot of times is create a new layer, create some kind of odd color that's nowhere in my design, usually a very bright color, and I will paint bucket that as a background, and I'm going to actually bring it above this faded layer because that's not going to show me what I want, and then bring it completely below it so you can see what I would be cutting off. So what I'm going to do is go in with my paint brush, soft brush, change the size of it so I can come in here and just get rid of some things that would look nasty if they printed right up to the edge. And this is very subjective, but you can tell when you have stuff that is going to look bad getting clipped off. And that's exactly what it'll look like. It'll look clipped. As far as the triangles here, what I'm thinking, we're not going to use them for this one, but I might as well clean it up because you may get a chance to use this layer. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to merge that group, my triangles, and then I like the crisp triangles more than I like the fade off there. I'm going to take this section and copy, just do Control V to paste, Control T to transform, right click, and I'm going to flip it horizontal so that I can kind of left and right that. Matter of fact, let me just get rid of the whole first one. And then I can duplicate this layer, Control T, I'm going to transform, I can flip that horizontal, And now I just had the piece that I really like that stood out, and it becomes Control D to deselect. So now I have this here, and it's fading off towards the edge there, which I don't mind it fading off down there. And then if I wanted it to be hard triangles at the top and bottom, what I would do is take this and let's go ahead and merge those. Then I can Control T, duplicate it first, Control T, just to transform, and I'm just gonna rotate it, and then I now have a symmetric design. But like I said, I'm not gonna use this at all. I'm gonna bring it up too, so that I'm not right on the edge. I'm not using the triangles at all for this one, but it'll be here as, you know, a template element for you guys. And then I'm gonna take my swooshes off because I don't plan on using that one on this design. What was that? That was my paint splash. And I'll go back and relabel this stuff too. And then of course I'm gonna take off my green because I don't need it now. So when I say yes, what this should do is reduce the canvas size so it is not as large as it was before. Alright, that also moved it, but it's no problem to move this back over. Okay, so what I'm going to do at this point is go ahead and move this around, clean this up. I'm going to take a little break and show you how we'll do the final steps of the artwork. This template is almost done, believe it or not. And we'll go from there to figure out how we're going to press this next. So I will check in with you guys in just a moment. Stay tuned.